Hi Neil, just a quick recap as per your request. I've done this from October on the left, a session where you were having difficulty with the club digging in the ground too much. Obviously when you look at this, it's not due to the weight being too far back, etc. It was about the extension coming out of the ground, so using the ground more effectively. I think this typifies where you are at the moment between your good and your bad a little bit more clearly than looking at some old footage. I looked at some old footage where it was from around about September 2015 where you were starting to load the club nicer. The biggest difference really was the way you had the pelvis forward at setup. So that particular session you were actually loading it nicely, and you were coming out the ground in a pretty appropriate manner. But I think this represents a little bit more of your current battle. So on the left, October, pretty typical of what we see when you are struggling with the shots where the divots are a little bit deep, you can't shallow it out correctly, you can't get the club coming out the ground. One on the right, you're working on the extension of the lower body a little bit more, so pushing up out the ground from P7 onwards, allowing the body to then continue to turn, reducing the rate at which the club passes the hands, etc, etc. So we'll just run these through. P1 to P2. We see on the right that we get a little bit more of a lively loading of the wrist, not a massive difference, but a little bit. We also see that this right arm doesn't get off the side quite as much as what we're seeing on this one. So one on the left is a little bit shallower, a little bit wider in the takeaway. One on the right is a more incremental loading of the accumulators from P1 to just past P2. By the time we get to P3, we can start to see the effect of that. If we're looking at the position of the shaft in relation to the left arm, we see that there's a marked difference between the two. A little bit more loading due to the fact that the club or the wrists have been loaded in a more incremental manner. So gradually loading from P1 to P3 on the right. On the left, a little bit more of a delayed loading. We're also seeing a little bit more flexing forward of this lead knee, which is nice. That lead knee can on occasion get in. Doesn't get in tremendous amount on that one on the left, but it can do. Usually typified by the club being too low to the ground in the takeaway rather than ascending slightly quicker due to the loading pattern that we just discussed. P4, a little bit longer in the shaft, a little bit more turn, not a massive amount. You've always made a nice turn, to be honest with you. Certainly less down cocking. On the left, you're trying to get some load in. As you can see there, you've got an element of lag coming in. There's actually a little bit more lag on the right hand image, but it's gone in gradually, P1 to P4, and then sort of just increased a little bit, rather than sort of very little going in and then sort of very little going in followed by lots going in. By the time we get to P6, we start to see a little bit of a difference in the lead knee and the trail knee. There's a little bit more flexion in the lower body on the left hand side. On the right hand side, you've already started to push up out of the ground. You can see that the left shoulder starts to climb a little bit more on the right, which is fine, shallowing out the club's descent. So at impact, a little bit less movement into the ground, and then through the ball, we're going to come out the ground in a more appropriate manner, lead leg and trail leg straightening gradually after the hit. Left wrist doesn't extend quite as much, so doesn't cup quite as quickly through the hit. The head and the neck not being kept down quite as long, and the body not going into flexion to assist you in your ability to turn the corner down at the bottom. So through the ball, lower body extending, allowing the upper body to rotate. You can still do with releasing the head a little bit more, but it is releasing now. And throughout the swing, there's a little bit more extension and a little bit less flexion. Good stuff, keep up the good work, and I look forward to more sessions during 2017.